The first successful trip men made through the air was in a balloon. The next step was to make the balloon go where they wanted it to go. This they did by adding motors and propellers. The result was the airship. But still, men were not satisfied. They wanted to build a machine that would fly through the air on wings. Such a machine is called an airplane. Many people in Europe and in America worked on this concept. The first inventors to build an aeroplane in which a man could fly were Wilbur and Orville Wright. Wilbur was born in 1867 near Millville, Indiana. Orville Wright was born 4 years later. When the two brothers grew up, they built up a successful printing business and soon opened a bicycle shop. One day, Wilbur read of a man in Germany who had fallen to his death while flying in a glider. A glider is really a kite that is large enough to carry a man. The idea of flying in a glider immediately interested Wilbur Wright. He told Orville about it. Then he began looking through the books in his father's library. One of the books which he found helpful was a book on birds. Man was imitating the birds when he was attempting to fly. The two brothers carefully watched and studied the flight of birds. They noticed how some birds could coast through the air for long periods of time. They found that other people, both in America and in Europe, had been trying to fly. These people had built gliders too. There was one question no one had answered. That was how to balance the glider when it began to dip forward or backward or to one side. The Wright brothers, after long study, decided to build a pair of smaller wings before the wings of their glider. By turning these smaller wings up or down, the glider would not dip forward or backward too far. For 4 years, the Wright brothers studied and worked on this problem. At last, they were ready to build a glider of their own. In the fall of the year 1900, the Wright brothers built their first glider at Kitty Hawk, and the test flight was a success. Exercise 2.
Inventors of the airplane. Now listen to the second part of the talk about the inventors of the airplane and fill in the missing information in the notes below.
The Wright brothers started to improve their glider, paying particular attention to its controls and to the shape of the wings. The new glider was longer and had a tail, but they wanted to add power to their glider. The following year, their bicycle shop seemed more like an airplane shop. Orville designed an engine which they built and mounted on the glider to produce flying power. They also experimented with various designs for the all-important propellers. It was December when the Wright brothers' plane was ready for the flight. Orville climbed into the plane and started the motor. Wilbur was holding the end of one of the wings to keep the plane level. Slowly, the plane started forward. It gained speed and rose into the air. It moved swiftly upward, then downward, then upward again. It was not a smooth ride, but it was successful. The plane came down undamaged, 120 feet from where it had started. 3 more flights were made that day. The longest was 852 feet, and the time in the air was 59 seconds. It was not a remarkable record, but it showed the Wright brothers that their plane was successful. Man had actually flown in an airplane. This was the beginning of the importance of the airplane. In 1912, after a few years of success, Wilbur died of typhoid fever when he was only 45. In 1943, exactly 40 years after the Wright brothers' first flights, Orville agreed to give their first airplane to the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. On January 30th, 1948, Orville died at the age of 77 after a short illness. The Wright brothers will never be forgotten. The names of both brothers are firmly and forever linked in the history of aviation.